and so forth. They can contact someone who can do prayers and take them to that place during the time of death. The body and mind of a dying person is very receptive during that particular point of time. So whatever prayers they get done, they will help, and they do help. So please have confidence in that. Thank you, Tsering.
Thank you, Jangchub. We'll now return to the book. The next page. The act of having the ground of liberation pointed out to you makes a powerful impression on your alaya. So even if you are not liberated at the moment of death, when you hear words like Buddha nature in your next life, or Tathagata Garbha, basic goodness of a human being, and ground of liberation, they will sound familiar or feel like déjà vu, most of which are signs that you may be a good vessel for Mahasandhi practice. Right now, your Buddha nature is wrapped in the cocoon of your physical body, the labels and names you assign to all phenomena, the distinctions you make, your habits, culture, values, and emotions. The entire purpose and aim of the Buddha's Dharma is to liberate and free us from this cocoon. But in order to fully understand this liberation, we first need to know about the ground of liberation. So Rinpoche says, what is the ground of liberation? It's a bit like this. Imagine you are sitting on a sofa in a very small living room. Suddenly, all you want to do is dance, so you move the sofa into the dining room. You can move the sofa because no matter how heavy and bulky it is, the sofa is movable, and the space you move it into is inherently available. To put it another way, the ground of liberation, also known as the ground of awakening, is something like a state of awakened dreaming. When we have a nightmare, however terrifying the experience, nothing actually happens because the moment we wake up, the nightmare dissolves without trace. The fact that nothing happens is the ground of liberation, Buddha nature. So if there are no spiders in your bed before you get into it, as you go to sleep, while you sleep, and when you wake up, however large and hairy the spiders in your nightmare, there is and never was a spider in your bed. In other words, you are not your dream. And Rinpoche and Jacob have covered this extensively in the Bardo teachings. No one experiences dreams constantly, just occasionally. And because you are not your dream, you can wake up. If you were your dream, you would never be able to wake up. It is the ground of liberation that makes it possible for us to wake up from the sleep-like illusion of this life. For a dying Buddhist, knowing that we're all given the opportunity to awaken into the ground of liberation when we die, is extremely encouraging. It reminds us that the moment of death is our big chance to wake up and be liberated. But of course, all these examples and arguments are based on specific Buddhist concepts. Rinpoche says, I've often wondered if someone who's not a Buddhist and therefore has no understanding of the Buddhist jargon used to describe these methods would be able to take advantage of the opportunity death offers. Death may only be an opportunity when looked at from a Buddhist perspective. Now we're going to ask you to turn away from your computers or phones and sit for a few minutes to experience the intangible dimension of who we are. And Jangchub is going to lead us through a few minutes of meditation.
Relaxing into a comfortable posture, back upright, and yet relaxed, and thereby supporting your body. If you are not able to sit, it's all right to lie down. It's fine. Just try and stay awake if you can. Eyes softly gazing, looking in front, open space, or slightly looking downwards across the ridge of the nose and down, but not actually focusing on anything, but just gazing. We have such a beautiful image, so you can also use that as a calm, reflective mirror. Relaxing through the body, scanning any tension that arises, notice and let go. Your hands, they can sit comfortably on your knees, or your right hand over the left. And if you're sitting like a mudra in your lap, the breath, breathe with your mouth slightly open, or breathe with your nose. Notice the rising and falling of your belly. Notice the breath, breathing out. As you breathe out, let go of all tension, of all that holds you back, of all fear. The out breath is slightly longer than your in breath. Relaxing into your belly through the breath and through your awareness. Bringing the awareness to the whole of your being. And then out in front of you in that space. Imagine a clear sky in front of you. Just as clouds can be shifted by a gust of wind to reveal the shining sun and reveal the vast open sky. Our thoughts naturally arise and fall. Take note of the rising and falling of our thoughts. They come and go like the clouds in the sky without leaving a trace. Stay with that awareness. Alert, calm, aware. We embrace whatever arises with compassion. Thank you, Tsering.
We'll now return to the book. And the next section we're looking at is Cut All Worldly Entanglements. The great Buddhist yogis of the past, like Milarepa, used to long with all their hearts to die in a solitary place and entirely alone. No one to ask me if I'm sick, no one to mourn me when I die. To die here alone in this hermitage is everything a yogi could wish for. May men not know of my death, and birds not see my rotting corpse. If I am able to die in this mountain retreat, the wish of this lowly one will be fulfilled. And this was spoken by Milarepa. And we all know that Milarepa was one of Tibet's greatest meditators. He describes himself here as this lowly one, not only through humility, but also as a bodhisattva, always putting others before oneself. As a Buddhist practitioner, even though you know only too well that death is imminent and inescapable, it is very likely that your diary will always be full of business meetings and social events. Whatever your beliefs, there will always be a summer holiday to plan, or a family Christmas, or a Thanksgiving dinner, or a birthday party. But as I've already mentioned, there is no guarantee that any of your plans will actually come to fruition. Hanging on to the belief that everything will work out for the best only stokes the fires of disappointment. Remember this, it's an important point. Most of humanity's most serious problems arise from blind hope and unreasonable assumption. So we might pause again here and let go of our plans for tonight and tomorrow. And experience the spaciousness that comes from letting go of plans and excess thinking. And I'll read a few lines of verse from Nusha Ken Rinpoche, Khenpo Jamyang Dorji. I bow at the feet of the peerless, gracious Lama. Listen a moment, gathering of Vajra friends. In this place, the infinite ocean of samsara, the relentless fury of the pounding waves of uncontrollable thinking, fatigues and beats down the exhausted mind. Let it rest itself in the great wisdom space of vast unchanging Dharmata, primordially repose basic ground. Liberation is self-arising. In the great space of Kunta Zangpo's Dharmakaya wisdom, self-awareness is certain to find its kingdom. Thus spoke the Dharma King, Longchen Rabjam. Place these words in your heart, dear friends. Rest in natural great peace, this exhausted mind, beaten helplessly by karma and neurotic thought, like the relentless fury of pounding waves in the infinite ocean of samsara. So Rinpoche goes on to say, as death draws near, try to give up your worldly concerns. Stop worrying about your family. Stop making plans. Stop thinking about what you haven't managed to accomplish and all the appointments in your diary. If you're brave and courageous, and if your situation allows you to make choices, it's usually best not to tell your wider circle of friends and acquaintances that you're about to die. It is especially important for spiritual people to distance themselves from unnecessary worldly concerns that may cause worry and anxiety at the moment of death. Tantrikas should, of course, tell their guru and close spiritual friends who may be able to offer spiritual help and support during the dying process and beyond. I'd now like to invite Jangchub to share from her experience some of the ways our guru and spiritual friends can support us during the dying process.
To have spiritual friends with you at the time of death is an extraordinary gift. Again, let them know what you would like before you're in that situation of actually passing away. But the kind of things they can do is, if they know that you're practicing a particular practice that is maybe reminding them of the nature of their mind, or the coming together in the Guru Yoga of arising in one taste, or whatever practice of love and compassion, get them to do that practice with you, sitting by their bedside. If they're open to having a few Sangha members who can all be in the room doing a practice for that person. If they don't want too much contact, you can continue doing those prayers, not in their presence, but in their room or so forth, but in another place. It doesn't matter. During the time of death, everything becomes extremely sensitive, and the person that's passing away will perceive much, much more than they usually do, and particularly after the time of death. When they actually died, you can give a lot of help by ritual and so forth. But first of all, contact their teacher, contact the Lama, have some prayers made by nuns and monks and fellow students or fellow Sangha members, or in a circle of friends that you have if you're from a different tradition. Create a sort of safety net for the time of death, that people can know exactly what you wish, so that they can feel confident in fulfilling that. There are rituals that can be done, Shinraisic practice after someone passes away. There's reading the Bardo during the time and after the time. If people aren't so familiar with the Bardo instructions, even after the time of death, it doesn't matter. You can still read it to them, because their consciousness will be looking for a place to go. And by reading the Bardo, you'll be helping direct that place. So don't be afraid to read that. And also, if you're not familiar with that, read Heart Sutra, any kind of sutras, Vajrasattva practice. It's like a purification practice to remove all obstacles. One can light incense, small amount of incense, create an atmosphere, making light offerings with prayers, hanging prayer flags, basically creating merit, creating a big positive base and dedicating it all the merit that you can accumulate for whatever Dharma practice you do or whatever good intentions you have. Dedicate that on behalf of the person. Place a photo in front of them so they could see it. You can direct a light on it, so every time they have some sort of glimpse of consciousness and look out, they see something inspiring. Their Lama, the Buddha, Mother Mary, Tara, whatever it is that really connects with them. Make a tape. Maybe I'm a little bit old-fashioned. Make a recording of your teacher giving advice. You can give that next to the ear of the person that's passing away, and just hearing their teacher giving advice. That, I think, those sort of things will become more and more available. Something to inspire. I'd like to share a little memory that I have about friends, Dharma friends, helping other Dharma friends. Songtse Rinpoche was very close to Tsering's father, Harry. when Harry was passing away in Kyogle Hospital, I had the great fortune to accompany Rinpoche to visit Harry. And I thought, oh, I wonder what Rinpoche is going to do, some sort of, big ritual or some sort of, what will he say to Harry? Anyway, what I can remember is that Rinpoche, when he went in to see Harry, he said, Harry, don't be worried, don't be afraid. Dying will be just like going to sleep tonight, having a dream, and waking in the morning to the next life. So just by that simple instruction, I could see in Harry's face, he was relieved. So you never know, it doesn't need to be, too abstract. Sometimes simply letting the person know that they're safe and that they're being met with prayers and love. And that goes for animals as well. When your animal's dying or your pet's dying, you want to let them know that it's all right. They can go, they can let go, that they will be reborn as a human being and chant Om Mani Padme Hum. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jangchub. Beautiful to remember that. And my dad did have a very peaceful passing. I was fortunate to be with him. So in the chapters to come in Living as Dying, we'll be discussing many different practices to support the practitioner beyond the time of death. So that'll be coming up in future sessions of Living as Dying. And we'll now return to the book. So Rinpoche says, try to withdraw from your worldly friends and family. Non-Buddhist children, brothers, sisters, mothers and fathers are unlikely to appreciate the spiritual aspect of your death, and their grief and sorrow could easily distract and worry you. The Buddhist teachings recommend that as death draws near, we should follow the example of a wounded deer and retire to a solitary place. However, in today's mundane world, it is very unlikely that we'll be able to choose to die alone. Imagine the media-driven public outrage, the conspiracy theories, and the lawsuits that would follow the discovery of a decomposing corpse weeks after death. And we've already heard previously from Julie that this would at least involve the coroner. So I recall one time when I was with Rinpoche giving advice to a practitioner who was dying. And Rinpoche began by saying, you have been a good human being, so there's absolutely nothing to worry about. Don't worry about your family. Don't have any regrets. Please remember, so-called living and so-called dying is all a projection of our mind. And then Rinpoche reminded my friend that as someone who's taken refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, we believe mind continues. And Rinpoche said, I want you to not consider this as the end, but this is just the beginning of the next stage of your practice, of your bodhisattva vow. Your work is not finished. Please continue to help beings who are suffering. And Rinpoche went on to say, the most important things to remember are Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and never stop having aspiration to help others now and in many times to come. So it's really beneficial for our onward journey if we can die without feelings of regret and guilt, And this is where the method of confession or letting go is so valuable. And Rinpoche goes on to say, regarding this, bring to mind every one of your shameful, selfish, negative thoughts and actions and confess them all. If you are Tantrika, also bring to mind and confess all your broken samayas, vows and commitments. If you can, make your confession face to face, either to a Lama or to a Dharma brother or sister. If neither is possible, make your confession mentally. Then take refuge and renew your bodhisattva vows. Ideally, Tantrikas should ask a Vajra brother or sister who follows the same guru to witness their reaffirmation of the bodhisattva and Vajrayana vows. There are many ways that this confession can happen. It's perhaps not only about confessing certain acts, but knowing that through our ignorance we have broken samaya many times in the past and the present, and we're likely to do so in the future. Our daily practice, as Jangchub was saying, whether it be Nondro or sadhana practice or sitting practice, includes all the points we've mentioned in this session: refuge, bodhicitta, vajrasattva confession. The best way we can prepare is with our daily Dharma practice. And I think Jangchub would have some more specific advice to add here. If you could, please, Jangchub.
Thank you. Probably not much more, but I think the main aspect of confessing is, I think I can remember something about Trulshik Rinpoche, a very high Lama, and he would confess around 4 or 6 times a day. He would do confession. This is an enlightened being reminding himself about the preciousness of his practice for sentient beings. I was really moved by just hearing that. And during the night, he would wake up if he was asleep and do the confession. Extraordinary. With the confession, as Tsering was saying, it can be in front of the Buddha image or within your mind, a visualization of the Buddha. You need to have a strong wish to confess and have some regret, feeling some remorse without concealing anything. And be sincere, and to make a commitment not to break this vow again, at least wholeheartedly making that vow. It's very hard, we know. We often, break our vows, and maybe that's the whole purpose of the more we become aware of that, the more we will do the confession. I think Rinpoche said our whole practice, in actual fact, on the path is a path of confessing and renewing our vow. It's so difficult not to be breaking vows, so it's not something to get upset about. It's just a way of really bringing that memory into our everyday situation. And then the actual ritual of Vajrasattva practice, Vajrasattva purifying the energy with blessings, asking with confidence that you're purified and receiving that purification from Vajrasattva. When you've received that blessing from Vajrasattva, the Buddha of purification, all your obstacles will be removed, and have confidence that that's happening and that you've received it and that Vajrasattva is pleased. Then at that time when you can feel for that period of time that you've received that blessing of purity. And when I say purity, it's not like in the sense of being holy or anything. It's a sense of being natural, being authentic, being appreciative, having sort of a sacred outlook that all sentient beings have the Buddha nature and potential. Then wish that everyone had that potential, and therefore they do have that potential, but pray for them that they recognize it. And then also we do Tsok practice. The Tsok practice is actually mainly about confession, about bringing a time when we gather together as a group and we make a powerful mandala of confession and offerings. So that's one of the best ways to make a confession. And being aware as much as we can of what we're doing day by day. Thank you.
And I think we can also renew our Bodhisattva and Vajrayana vows just simply by doing the Nondra or sadhana practice that we're familiar with, and especially if there's notice, if there's time that one can prepare, then one can also have a Sangha friend to help one do self-initiation of one's deity and so forth. This might not be possible when you're feeling quite weak towards the end, but if you have some warning, then this could be done beforehand. Now, I'm just wondering if there's any questions. Please feel free to unmute and ask questions. And also Annie Zangmo will read to us any questions that are in the chat box.
Yeah, the first one is confession some kind of practice of awareness?
I think Jangchub can answer that.
Definitely.
Yes. It's I think you would say, Jangchub, that it's not only a type of practice of awareness, but it brings greater awareness as a result.
Yeah.
Is there another question?
Not currently in the chat box. We're just waiting for people to get typing.
Mm-hmm.
Or otherwise, just unmute yourself and ask.
I have one. If you were, normally when we do Vajrasattva practice, we sit upright and visualize the Guru above our heads, and the nectar flows down through the aperture of Brahma. But if we're very ill and cannot sit up in that position, what do we do?
We just make the visualization. It makes no difference at all what we're doing, whether we're lying down or however we are. We can still visualize the nectar coming through the aperture at the crown of the head. And Rinpoche recently gave a suggestion for Nondro practitioners who are very short on time that this is an upright position he was talking about, but that they could do their Vajrasattva in the shower while chanting the 100 syllable mantra while feeling the shower blessings of Vajrasattva. And so really a posture like you'll find in talks that Rinpoche gives on YouTube and so forth, that he keeps stressing that the posture is not the most important thing, and the feeling and the conviction that Vajrasattva has the power to bring about the purification, and that is actually happening is far more important and can easily be done lying down. And it's probably quite good to try it sometimes, just to get used to that, in case, you might have had an operation, or you might be not well and you can't sit up to do your practice. And at times like that, it's fine to lie down.
Thank you, Tsering. I've had surgery, and I've been unwell a lot of times and had to lie down. And I always felt as though my practice was not worthwhile because of that. So it's really good to know that it wasn't wasted.
Yes, yes. No, it's important to overcome those thoughts, because really, it's really just another projection of mind, and it really doesn't have any substance at all. In our next session, next week, we'll be lying down to practice with Annie Langsam, a senior nun from Shenreizig Institute. So there you go. We'll be all lying down next week.
Thank you.
I'll read some more from the chat box. Can one use the 7-line prayer to support a daily confession practice?
Yes, very strong. 7-line prayer is one of the strongest prayers we can say for removing obstacles and for purification. Absolutely.
I'm just going to go to Serene, because she has her hand up. So Serene, if you would like to speak.
I would like to ask the question, when we're talking about the Vajrasattva practice for dying, dissolving the consciousnness, do we dissolve our consciousness into Vajrasattva at the dying moment?
Yes, that's utilizing the Vajrasattva as a type of poa. And really nice to see you, Serene, my dear friend. And yes, it was very powerful.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go back to the chat. Was the confession by the Lama more about vows broken, re-practice, more than negative thoughts or actions? I think that's referring to what you shared, Jangchub.
Oh,
Sorry, it's my cat.
sounds like a little baby.
She's old.
An old baby.
I have to pick. Do you want to speak to that?
Could you please repeat that one?
Yes. So, was the confession by the Lama more about vows broken, re-practice, more than negative thoughts or actions? More so.
That you're talking about
Yes.
Troshik Rinpoche.
Yes.
I think he was setting an example of how important it is to have that kind of awareness when we do something, that we confess it, that we acknowledge it, that we own it, that we take responsibility. I think he was just displaying for us an example.
Thank you. The next question: what will be the way for a practitioner to die alone in the modern time?
If you're fully supported by your palliative care group, if you're fortunate enough to be able to die at home, is one way. We can ask our palliative care nurse and team member, Kirsten, to speak about this more in a future session. But yes, that would be perhaps an aim that we might have, to be able to die alone, but we never know when we're going to die. It's difficult to have it set up, and it's quite interesting that palliative care nurses have told me that quite often it's when the family leaves the room that the person passes away, and the family might be sitting there supporting and waiting for the person to pass, and then it's as soon as they leave the room that the person passes. So it seems to be perhaps an inbuilt kind of intention, and the nurses say that people have that in their mind because they don't want to upset the family. So in their mind, they're waiting for the moment that the family is no longer there. So I think if we have that aspiration as a practitioner, if we make that aspiration regularly, just like the prayer that Milarepa, the aspiration prayer of Milarepa that we read at the beginning of the section, that if we have an aspiration like that, that we say regularly, it's probably quite possible that that will come about. And we can also make plans with our advanced care directive and so forth to give that situation the best chance of happening.
Yeah, I'd like to add that it would be really, again, very important to give that aspiration that you have to let your family, know that that's what you'd like, and to have it written out and so forth. But I think, it's probably good to be a little flexible.
Yes.
So you can, prepare your mind for that. And then if things change, I've had so many people who've had, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And, I had one lady who was going to do that, like just die on her own. And her husband had already died a couple of months before her. They both had cancer. And she died a couple of months after him. But when the time came, she suddenly got her parents wanted her to come back to Melbourne. And suddenly she got such an aspiration for compassion towards her parents, wanting to offer that to them. So at the last minute, I was just blown out, because I went to the hospital and just sort of seeing what was going on. And I said, "Oh, are we bringing her home?" And they said, "Oh, sorry, she's off. She's gone. She's gone to Melbourne." So one never knows. So yes, make plans, but be prepared that they might change. It sounds a bit familiar, doesn't
Yes. Something often said by Rinpoche.
it? Yeah. No assumptions.
Kirsten, would you like to add anything, just briefly? I know we'll be covering this again, but just briefly, anything that comes to mind about people requesting to die alone, how that gets managed in palliative care? We'll find you on here, or hear you on here.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's very common for people to die on their own in the end. Like Tsering already mentioned, once the family members leave the room and the person is on their own. And I think especially during the night is very common for someone to die as well, because of the, probably the atmosphere, the stillness, and kind of feeling like they can let go. And I think on an emotional level as well, letting go of family members and of their life. So that might just be easier to let go without anyone around them. I think it's very natural for people to want to be on their own. A lot of the time before someone passes away, there's a natural withdrawal anyway happening. So withdrawing from conversations, withdrawing from being engaged with the family members or their environment. So naturally, the focus is, I guess, internally. And so I think it's kind of an inbuilt instinct that we have, like animals do too. We just want to be on our own, and we want to withdraw from our outside world. And I think as the less emotional input there is from the family, the less sadness and all of that there is, the better and the quicker the person can let go as well.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for jumping in.
That's okay.
So we're getting close to time. I will just read the last couple of comments here. The same person who asked about being able to die alone said, it could be easier for orphans or people without family. So just a general comment there. And then Lizzie is sharing a personal experience, making strong aspirations related to my late mum, who was diagnosed with cancer many, many years ago. When I heard of my late mum's diagnosis, I started making daily aspirations, prayers and pujas that will be able to be there for her and her last days of dying. Managed her death process smoothly. She was in hospital. The doctor, nurses, hospital management allow me and Sangha members to do prayers with her for at least 8 hours. All my aspirations came true for me, and all the way up to her funeral and wake. So yeah, just sharing the power of making those aspirations, setting the intention.
Yeah,
Yes.
the aspirations are really important.
So wonderful, Lizzie, that that could happen for your mum.
Yeah.
Really the best gift. So now we're coming to the end of our session, and we've been discussing methods of confession for Buddhist practitioners here. But in session 20 on July 31st, our guest speaker, Annie Langsam, will be giving valuable suggestions on how to assist those who aren't Buddhist practitioners with letting go of feelings of guilt. Now, this is really helpful for us to know these methods so that we can assist perhaps family members who aren't Buddhist or friends. And next Sunday we'll cover Remind Yourself About What Is About to Happen, and Annie Langsam will be our special guest speaker, leading us in meditation through the stages of dissolution at the time of death. And we'll now dedicate the merit of discussing this really important topic, and it's wonderful to have all of you joining us each week and appreciating, the importance of this topic. So this virtuous accumulation of merit we offer, so that all obstacles dissolve, and that at the time of our death, each of us may find ease in dying and swift rebirth in the pure land of great bliss, quickly gaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And if the material presented today has raised any concerns for you, it's suggested you speak with a trusted friend, your personal health professional, or your Buddhist teacher or instructor. So thank you once again, everyone, and thank you, Jangchub and Ross and Annie Sangmo.
I really like that picture you have up while the text is there of Rinpoche. It's really beautiful.
Yes, it's a beautiful picture. Yes. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tsering Jangchub. Thank you, Jangchub. Thank you, Annie Samo. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank